Bit of context for this review, I have now tried to do this 7 times. Over and over again, I keep repeating myself, I keep redoing it, deleting the next video, just because I want to get this as right to my opinion as possible. This is it, okay? This is it. So X-Men Apocalypse is the 4th film directed by Bryan Singer in the X-Men universe, the 9th film overall if you count Deadpool as well. Bryan Singer also directed X-Men 1 and 2 and X-Men Days of Future Past, and now he comes back again to this franchise and continues on with his story about James McAvoy as Professor Xavier and Michael Fassbender as Magneto, as well as Jennifer Lawrence as Mystique, Nicholas Hoult as Beast, and Evan Peters as Quicksilver. I love those characters, love those 5 characters. Bryan Singer really knows how to continue their story. He doesn't just take these characters and just drops them into some other place and says, there you go, that's just what we're doing. No, he understands that they have been left off at a certain point from Days of Future Past over there. And then he continues on with those stories as a natural evolution of where they would have gone. And I loved seeing that. The way that he can actually direct this movie and not just make it a general sort of like, yeah, okay, fine, it's just another X-Men movie, it's just another comic book movie, yada yada. He does have a lot of style that he pours into it. He does have a signature clarity to a lot of the scenes. He does go bigger and more ambitious. There's a lot more explosions and action, but there's a lot of telepathic battles and these psychedelic sort of things that are really kind of trippy to watch, but he makes it look interesting and he makes it visually intricate. Yes, it is not the same as Days of Future Past. It is not as, calm and collected and as emotionally involving. There is a lot of emotional scenes, but X-Men Apocalypse still has that big action oomph and this epic scale of it all that I thought was really entertaining to watch. James McAvoy's Professor Xavier, he's lovely to see. He's further emulating Patrick Stewart. He doesn't have that big of a role in this movie. He doesn't have that big of a journey. He doesn't have this big message that he has to learn, but he still provides this kind of constance for us. We can still watch him and be entertained by him because he's just nice and fun. He has that humanity, that heart to him. Jennifer Lawrence as Mystique, I love seeing her. I love seeing her as this new hero of the story instead of a villain. We can see that resonating struggle inside Mystique of, do I want to do my own thing or should I be the hero that everyone thinks that I am? Jennifer Lawrence really plays into that really well. She has these great interactions with this new cast. The new cast is fantastic. I loved Alexandra Shipp as Storm, Sophie Turner from Game of Thrones as Jean Grey, Ty Sheridan plays Scott Summers Cyclops, and Cody Smith McPhee plays Nightcrawler. All 4 of them do as good or a better job than the previous counterparts that we've seen in the first 3 X-Men films. These kids really give these characters a bit more emotion, a bit more reason to care about them. They're better acted as well. Even Rose Byrne as Moira McTaggart and Lucas Till as Havoc, they return. Who they haven't really been in these movies since X-Men First Class. Now they've come back and they actually have a purpose. They have a real emotional connection to the story and how their characters are portrayed. Wow, there's a lot of emotional scenes in this movie that involve just those 2 characters. Those 2 characters who are kind of small, you don't really care about them that much, but they actually turn out to have a lot to do with other characters and they influence a lot of characters. There's this nice little subplot of Havoc being the older brother of Cyclops and Professor Xavier still being in love with Moira from First Class. I love that. There's a lot of little emotional scenes in this movie that really carries it through. And that's what I've always found with X-Men films. They have a lot more emotion behind them, a lot more emotional scenes than any other comic book movie that I've seen. And the real standout for everything, for both the emotion and the characters and just the storytelling in general, is Magneto. Michael Fassbender as Magneto gives us his best performance that he's ever given us as Magneto. His subplot is a huge diversion from everything we've ever seen as Magneto. It is something that it's a very interesting way to go, and it is performed beautifully. That just this whole sequence of Magneto's real life that he lives after Days of Future Past is beautiful to see and horrifying to see what actually happens to it, how it continues on, how it concludes, and how it keeps continuing on as Magneto forgets everything, every message that he's ever learned about the goodness of humanity. He forgets it in an instant and only desires power because he is just completely struck with remorse and anger and hatred. The real Magneto that we've seen, but he still comes back. We still see the glimmers of like, come on, Magneto, we know that you are a great villain, but you're also a great character. And that's what I loved about X-Men Apocalypse. It made Magneto a villain, but also still a great character. The other villain, Apocalypse, I thought Oscar Isaac did a good job for the role. The role, however, was underwritten. Not in terms of his speeches sounded bad. His speeches were amazing. I loved his position. I loved what he wanted to do. You know, because he is the first mutant. He's woken up 3,000 years after being asleep and wakes up in 1983 and decides, yep, we're just going to clean the slate and we're going to destroy humanity and wipe it clean, build a better world. That makes sense. I get that. However, how he actually does that is to just influence other people to do it for him. And I just thought, like, I don't know, you could have just been big and bad and you could have just literally destroyed everything. I know that's how his character is in general. He's always had the four horsemen around him as his bodyguards, but I don't think it really translated that well into the screen. His actions of almost disintegrating everything, while it looked cool, it didn't really fit into the story. The real way that I liked Apocalypse was when he wasn't destroying everything, was when he was fighting all these other characters. And I liked seeing that when he's trying to hold off all these other characters while he's also having this psychic battle with Professor Xavier. Oh, that was just really cool to see, and that's what I liked. That's what I liked about Apocalypse. It's just when he was becoming the general comic book villain, I didn't like. When he was becoming the more unique villain towards the end of his story, I liked seeing that more. The new characters do stand out from other ones. Psylocke is underwritten. She has a good action presence. Olivia Munn shows that she knows how this character should be. She has all these really cool sword movements, but I don't think it really worked for this movie. It does set up that she's going to continue on in other films, which could be good because then she could actually have a bigger role. But in this movie, I just didn't really care. The same thing goes for Angel. Angel was just underwritten just in general. I didn't care about him at all, and I didn't want to see any more of him. I just thought, okay, whatever. There's a lot of flaws of X-Men Apocalypse. The writing could have been better. The first 20 minutes is just set up. It doesn't do the 80s as well as the First Class did the 60s, Days of Future Past did the 70s. There's a lot of things that could have been better, and there's a lot of familiar plot points that get repeated from other X-Men movies, which it is kind of like nostalgia, but it does divert seriously in terms of where the story's meant to go. And that was just another flaw of this movie. I'm not going to say that this movie is fantastic in every single way. It does have obvious flaws, but I have to say that the positives certainly outweigh the flaws. X-Men Apocalypse is familiar, yet it's still fun, it's still epic, it's still a big action movie. There's a lot of great scenes in this movie, especially Quicksilver's scene. Holy crap, not only does Evan Peters still play Quicksilver in a magnificent way, they give him more to do, but his scene in general, oh my god, it's on par with what they did for Days of Future Past. There's also another cameo in this movie, which is absolutely incredible in every single way that I cannot even talk about it because it is a humongous spoiler for the movie. If you've seen the trailer, you probably know what I'm talking about, but Jesus Christ, that was the best. That was just the best scene in the entire movie. X-Men Apocalypse is a standard X-Men movie. It does fit well into the X-Men universe. I'm excited to see where it goes. It has a very strong ending, and I'd have to say that X-Men Apocalypse is worth the ticket and the DVD. So X-Men Apocalypse, have you seen it? Please tell me what you think about it. I want to know what people's opinion of this movie is because the critic reviews have not been positive. Remember, push that little red button. Thanks for watching.